Welcome to the Live Well, Perform Better podcast, brought to you by Below the Line. My name is David Duggan, and I am part of a team made up of experts from the worlds of business, elite sport, adventure, and health and well-being. We are coaches, mentors, and advisors to some of the world's biggest companies and organizations, as well as smaller businesses, entrepreneurs, and people looking to make their mark on the world. Our guiding mantra at Below the Line is Live Well, Perform Better. What does that mean, you might ask? Good question. Maybe the easiest way to describe it from our perspective is finding the formula that works for you when it comes to things like looking after your physical and mental health, running your business, developing your career, leading your people, or simply being able to show up as brilliantly as possible into your own life, both for yourself and those around you. That's why each week I sit down with a member of our team or an invited guest for a conversation that focuses on the question, what do the words live well, perform better mean to you? This question is a way into exploring with people from a range of different backgrounds, industries and disciplines. What are the practices, techniques, habits or ideas that they use to help them to show up and be at their best in all areas of their lives, whether that's as CEOs, leaders or managers, or as parents, family members or friends. We keep it short and sweet so that you can extract all the good stuff and get on with the rest of your day, and hopefully put some of this knowledge, experience and expertise into play for yourself. This week I'm delighted to welcome another very special guest, Ronan O'Brien of Breathwave Ireland. Ronan is a man of many talents and disciplines who is probably most widely known for his work as a breathwave practitioner, whose virtual Wednesday evening breathing sessions became a vital part of people's coping mechanisms during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, and which continue to attract a large audience of participants from across the world. I was first made aware of Ronan via members of the Below the Line Press Pause community, and with my curiosity piqued, I reached out to see if I could talk to him and find out more about his work. What followed was a fascinating conversation with a really thoughtful and thought-provoking person, whose path towards what he does has been shaped by challenging personal circumstances and overcoming them, emotional and spiritual awakenings at key moments in his life, and learning to trust both himself and the work he is doing, so that he can create the life he wants for himself while doing something that holds huge meaning both for himself and his clients. Please subscribe at www.belowtheline.ie, where you can stay up to date with the podcast, as well as exclusive online events and sessions, including our Press Pause coaching community and our story coaching programs. Thanks for listening, and see you next week. Okay, great. So look, I'll kick in with the first question and see where that takes us. Why do you do what you do?
I do what I do because, well, I enjoy it. And why do I enjoy it? I enjoy it because I have gone through a process of different, to use different words, development, experience, realizations, that the most preferable way that I want to live my work-life balance is by helping people, and by helping people achieve a space within themselves where they're able to help themselves. So breath work is how that would translate for me.
You know, one of the words that came up to me is this, as I was kind of researching you, was this idea of curiosity. You seem to be very curious about yourself and how you can be in alignment with who you are and the world around you. Is that correct? Or
so like traditionally I would have a sporting background, and I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I would have been PT. I would have been an aspiring rugby player, and and a mix in between. So a lot of my focus was about performing, and a lot of my focus was about pushing, and in those areas I really found out it's through injury and through kind of having to take that time back from it, that's what I thought other people wanted me to be, and that's what I felt that I should be in a family, in a society, in a neighborhood that kind of gives you credit for being a person like that. So to being a big, strong, rugby player, or to being, or whatever that might be for individuals, be it a doctor, that be it a musician, whatever that means for people. But for me, it meant being a physically able and athletic person. And as through injuries occurred, and so the injury, my big injury, which plays a huge part in my life, is that I broke my back, and I broke my back when I was 18, and how that then has come to be. I remember saying at one stage that my lotto would be having my back fixed, you know. And now I would look at that comment and kind of go, because I was in chronic pain for the best part of 20 years. And how I would look at that now and refer to that statement is that if I didn't have it, if I didn't have that pain, that stone in my shoe, that's something that kept pulling me off or distracting me, looking for its attention, looking for me to pay real attention to it, then, you know, I'd be a very different person now. And I think I would be a person that would have been caught up in the pleasing of societal norms, and how I'm not that now.
Talk to me about that the 20 years of chronic pain, because it's only when the body screams loud enough that we hear it. Is that true for you, or talk to me about that?
Yeah, it is, and it also aligns with the term that you may have come across as is the path of the wounded healer, and how your pain becomes your power, or how your journey through the darkness of depression, or your journey through physical injury, uh, family trauma, or wherever it may be, grief, that it becomes the well in which you almost drown in but learn to swim, and how then that becomes part of your gift to what you offer people as you move with the learning and with the education of it.
Obviously, you've gone from strength and conditioning personal trainer to now working with the breaths. So I'd imagine, was that fueled by your exploration to kind of be free from pain, or achieve pain relief?
I definitely would have been looking for pain relief. I went to various therapists. I went to various anything that I thought, like bioenergy, Reiki, did not something that I was kind of maybe relaxed enough to feel the benefit at the time. But I was looking for a steamroller to iron me out in ways, because I was just, talk about, I wasn't able to wash my face at the sink in the bathroom. I couldn't bend over to that degree. That's when it was really chronic. And like subsequently, I got back playing, and after a while, and I broke my collarbone. And at 25, I was like, I can't keep getting over injuries and not be kind of in and still being a fair bit off, a professional career, for example. So I made the decision that, look, I'm really kind of beating my body up here. And after those years, I worked at various jobs and industries, and I was kind of adrift. I would have been on unknowns to myself. And, I think a big part of that, and especially understanding what sports does for young men particularly, is that it gives them a channel to explore their energy. It gives them a channel to be recognized in their community, and how, a rite of passage is something that I've becoming to understand from seeing the youth around me, and from not having it in myself. So not having a rite of passage. So not having that, not coming out of that adolescent stage into young manhood and being recognized as, you're a man. For me, in where I live in Limerick, at that time, it would have been like, you're playing senior cup rugby with your club, therefore you're seen as a man. You've developed into that stage, And it was very frustrating for me that I didn't get to that, and how there wasn't any other alternatives in terms of, in religious terms, traditionally you would have had it as confirmation or whatever it may have been. And in tribal or terms, it would have been like, you go out to the wild with no food for 3 days and 3 nights, and you make a camp for yourself, and you learn to light your own fire and find your own food, those kind of things. So we have been diffused from our ability to really find ourselves with a huge proportion of testosterone that is driving an insatiable energy to create and to be seen. And when we don't have that, and some people can have it for different parenting styles or whatever, but when we don't have it, we come into this long stasis of, yeah, I'm a man in my 20s, but I'm still a young fella. And I'm kind of recognized, and what people have moved to be recognized is financial success, is the car, or is the a consumer proportion, which is like, well, he's got the house, he's got the car, he's got a lovely wife, or play that in different areas. And then it's like, yeah, but is he happy? And as we see now, and how trauma, or how dysregulation or frustration in the male is like, and I'm saying the male because I'm talking about my experience, my interpretation, but it's still similar in females, only that in women traditionally is that obviously when they're recognized in womanhood when they're able to conceive. So that there is a difference, obviously. And I'd love to have to hear more from a female point of view around that. But yeah, so as a young man moving on, and then you're supposed to have these certain milestones set. When you don't have those milestones set, you start going, what's wrong with me? I'm not good enough. I'm stupid. I'm A, B, and C, not happy, underlining the various different contexts in which we would instill upon ourselves, because society is judging us as being successful if we have money, if we have a position in a company, or if you're driving the Mercedes, for instance, and how usually at some stage the penny drops, and all that doesn't matter. And it happens, people, when they're sick, people come to the point and kind of go, sure, I did all this, I have all that, I ticked all the boxes, but I fucking colon cancer. What good is it? Or I can't, my fertility isn't there, or and how it's, how the body has been ignored for so long that it's now looking for your attention in a different way. And then I guess to come back to somewhat answering the question, that how pain for me eventually got me to there in my 30s. But I do feel that it wasn't help from the societal influx or the societal banner of not being recognized as a man, not being recognized as, in tribal terms, as a warrior, as a brave, as a, so somewhere in there.
And in terms of rites of passage, or those types of experiences, did you go and seek those for yourselves, or try and experience them, in other parts of the world, or whatever it might be?
Unbeknownst to myself, yes. I didn't go out with that, like, I'm going to find myself. So what happened for me was, and, I know Joe Rogan gets a lot of press right now, but he opened up conversations for people, And I'm going back 15 years when he was, you know, who was Joe Rogan, what was UFC. And I didn't come at it from a UFC point of view. I came at it from a point of listening to it because he was interviewing a guy called Graham Hancock. And Graham Hancock is an English journalist originally, and how he started going down the road of questioning the origins of civilization and coming up with like questioning how really much older are the pyramids, is Newgrange, and how we are a species with amnesia. And if anybody who's interested in that, definitely get onto Graham Hancock. Amazing book, Fingerprints of the Gods. And how I was in kind of how I was taken with his conversation was that he was saying that he was addicted to marijuana, and he was using marijuana as for his writing capabilities and helping him to create more ideas and helping him to kind of get out of his head. But also what he didn't realize is that it was affecting his life and his relationship with his wife in a very, very toxic way, because he was paranoid, because he was controlling, and so on. And the way he came to realize that was through sitting with a plant medicine called ayahuasca, and how ayahuasca, or it's known as the grandmother, would have come in and given that very, told him the story, or given him the understanding through this realm of connecting with the plant life via a psychedelic, and being minded in I think he did it in Peru, and allowed him to kind of unlayer the masks that he had around himself down to the core, and how then the core of himself then translated to, you have a problem with marijuana and it's coming from this part of your life and it's a control mechanism. So basically he came back from this excursion and this trip, and he stopped smoking marijuana. He apologized to his wife, and his life took a very, very proactive change, you know. And so I was, I'm interested in this. I'm like, gosh. And I don't have a background in party drugs or anything, so I'm pretty green and pretty very inexperienced in that realm, those realms. And back then, we didn't have a lot of information on even the internet about it. This is 15 years ago, yeah, easily. So I kind of put the word out, and eventually it came to me that there was an indigenous guy traveling, and he had papers from the tribe he was with, and he was working with a medicine, and it was kind of like ayahuasca. And I said, okay, I'll trust it, I'll go. And I went to the hills, and I met this man, and I had an experience that was most earth-shattering, frightening, profound, and life-changing in 15 minutes. And I don't tell people to go looking for it. I don't suggest that they need it or anything like that. This is what happened to me. And luckily, I wasn't married at the time. I didn't have kids. I had the ability to go and kind of integrate it without having too many other distractions. I just had that time, that point in my life. And it was, to this day, it was profound. And I went back and visited that guy. He came back kind of 6 months again later. And the medicine that he worked with was called 5-MeO-DMT. It's a secretion from the Sonoran desert toad. And for me, it was the most frightening thing I ever did in my life was to do that a second time. So to tie all that back into where we're going, or where this conversation is building and leading to. It's not about going out, having experiences and going, wow, this is what the world is really like. But it's about how it really was part of my initiation from what I thought it was to be a human, and what I thought it was to be this person called Ronan, and how it translated into something much more profound and much more ecstatic. And it gave me, and I guess that was part of my initiation from my old self into my new self.
Fantastic. I love that word, ecstatic. Um, uh, and just picking up on something you said there earlier, just a second ago, what is it to be human now for you?
Well, what it was for me to be human then was what a lot of people are stuck with. It was stuck with, I really care what other people think of me. I'm really, I've got to achieve. I've got to be able to have a greater ability to purchase and consume. To, to how the mask I wear isn't the mask of who I am, and how that's the persona on different levels that was for me. And what it is to be human now, what it is to be human now is a practice. It's a different type of practice, and being human now is a practice of catching yourself when you're lying to yourself and being honest with yourself, and as much as possible treating people how you like to be treated, or treating people with a a whole new understanding of empathy and compassion. Because in that experience for me with that medicine, I met love. I met love in its entirety, and it was shattering. It was absolutely so intense. It broke me, and I had to rebuild myself. And in that rebuilding, I think I got some of it right, and that was moving myself to be in service to other people. And when I say in service to other people, but it's also with the boundaries of, like, for myself, that I fill my own glass first, and it's from there that I'm able to help people top up their glass. And I'm not running on empty. I'm not, my self-care is through to me and my family. And then what happens after that is a joy in helping. In the helping is the receiving, and it's somewhere. And again, there's kind of different avenues where that might be explained for different people's journey. But for my journey, it's like through breath work, and how my understanding, how my dive into breath work created an awareness, and created a practice of fulfillment through my nervous system that better engages me with the world and with the work that I'm drawn to do and enjoy doing.
As I listen to you describe that transition or that change that the psychedelics kind of brought about, but I also hearing that you seem to have broken the pattern, or become more aware of the negative impact of comparative thinking on you. Would that be right? Or
I catch it every week. It's not something that I'm ever over of. There's always, you're always, you know, at the back of your mind somewhere, some part of that reptilian part of your brain stands beside another man, and you want to see who's taller. You know, it's so much less there now. And when I do catch myself now, I'm able to laugh at myself. I mean, as the Buddha reached enlightenment, he started laughing. And it's the laughing at yourself, and it's just the pressures, projections, and pronunciations you put on your own kind of limitations And that when enlightenment comes to, like, as in the Buddha, or is in those deep aha moments, and you're like, you just have to laugh at yourself for taking yourself so seriously, because we are, and also in that same breath, it's the absolute gratitude for the ability to live in this body, in this life, because it's a gift, because it's an experience that, when we can move through it with grace, with forgiveness, with love, that it's exponential, and it's not narrow, and it just, we come from here thinking of what we should be, what we need to be. And if anyone can't see me, I have my hands up like blinkers, and you're like, it's a one way, this is what I'm doing. And as we kind of come into a realization, or we come into like a development of, it can be called a spiritual practice. Yeah, it can. It's but it's not, again, for me, it's not a religious practice. It's not a spiritual practice that I think mine is right and someone else's is half right, or anything like that. It's the alignment of my spiritual practice is allowing everybody to be exactly where they are, and exactly perfect, and just meeting them where they are. And to meet them where they are, I can only meet them where I am myself. And just relaying that back to breath work. Like, of course, I might come across as, I've some things figured out or whatever, but I mean, you spend enough time with your family or your kids, and you soon get recognized about just how far you've come. But I have to say that because of breathwork, because of that regulation that I practice in my nervous system, my reactivity, my frustration, my ability to catch myself at the right time, is a lot more beneficial.
And then moving into, breath work, was that another type of a rite of passage situation for you, and how did you find it?
I found it in a beautiful place down in Cork. There was a lady that we knew called Mary, and I had gone down, and this breath work was happening, and there was another different man traveling called Adrian. There was all this kind of, I guess it's kind of an underground shamanic kind of community, yeah. And how we just lay down, and what he did do was he gave everybody a smoke, one inhalation of marijuana. Now, most people, I'm guessing, have smoked marijuana, and I had to, and I don't have a fixation on it, or I don't have a crutch on it. And I was like, okay, I smoked it. And we started breathing really deeply, really deep. I had no idea what was going on. And I was just trusting and following. And this would have been after my experience with the other 5-MeO DMT medicine, toad medicine. And then how, again, it just started taking off more layers. I was like, what is going on here? I was seeing things play out in a very kind of dreamlike way, but very vivid, of just so many aspects of my life, and how things had been connected, and how things make sense to me. And it was quite a cathartic. I mean, that it was like my body was really up and moving, and it was very kind of physical. So yeah, another rite of passage, and I had an amazing experience, but tiring, very tiring. And wanting to go back and revisit that, thinking that is that a once off, but that's just because maybe I smoked some marijuana. What was it? I did it again 3 months later. I had another profound experience, this time where I had a this like sense of blue light come into me and come down into my belly, and the message that it came, it was like, my name is Freya and I'm your daughter. And I at this time I'm not married, I'm not engaged. I was with my wife now was my partner. But I was like, that's a bit mad. That's probably my mind playing some tricks, you know. But as it turns out, it's just to finish off that story. I've told it before, but it's how it finished out was that one of the guys who was in that room with me, Mike. Mike is also a breathwork practitioner now working in India, and how that translated that we were finishing our schooling in breathwork in British Columbia, just up in Vancouver, and with our teacher Robin Clements. And we're really kind of after a whole 2 weeks of intense workshop, breathing 6 hours a day, you know, theory, practical work, somatic education, and it was a live-in, you know, a live-in community for 2 weeks. And this gets brought up because I'm then married. This is like 2 years later. I'm then married. And I said, and Mike turns around and goes, wouldn't it, and Heather was pregnant, my wife was pregnant. And he goes, wouldn't it be crazy, Ronan, if it was if it was a girl and her name was Freya? Because Heather was just 3 months pregnant, and I had told him, and he's like, and I was like, that would be pretty crazy, all right, because I wasn't paying too much attention to it. And within 10 seconds, a dog jumps up and starts licking my face, and the owner goes, Freya, Freya, come here, come here, come here. And we're like, okay, it isn't going to get any more clearer than that, you know. And so I came back and I told Heather, and Heather was like, I'm pretty sure it's a boy. No, I can feel it's a boy. My intuition is that this is what it's a boy. And I'm like, I am not getting lied to. This is very, very strong for me. So when we went in, and how many ever weeks we were in, we got that photograph in the womb, and it was she was like, it's a girl. And I was like, I knew it. So that was just kind of one of those fantastic stories around it, you know. But you know, coming back into, you know, how I developed into breathwork, somewhere in between then, after doing a couple of different modalities of breathwork, holotropic work, and trying to understand, I got up to Martin Duffy in Dundee. I did 2 seasons of coaching with him, and then I went over to Canada with Mike. That was breathwave practicing, and we came back, and I was just dipping in and out of it. And it wasn't until and I was holding, you know, workshops and retreats, but it was only once every 2 or 3 months. And then I had the opportunity to do more of it online for the lockdown, because people were pretty anxious, you know, and of course, as you well understood. And I started doing it on Zoom. I botched it up for a month, and then got the hang of it and grew it and got some recognition, and people were talking about it. So now the Wednesday night work, which is my calling card, or my kind of business card about it, people can come in. It's a donation based session on a Wednesday evening at 8:30 p.m. and it goes on for about an hour. And in it, I guide people through the many things that might come up for them, and how to just switch off from them and come back into their breathing. And the type of breathing is a circular breathing, and you know, it's beneficial for anxiety, it's beneficial for depression management. It's beneficial for really breath work. Now, as I would explain it, to describe breath work, I would first describe the nervous system and how the nervous system then, breath work is the gateway to the nervous system. So we are our nervous systems experiencing the world. How our tensions from our childhood, from our adolescence, from any car crashes, from any falls off the bike, all those kind of things, skiing, whatever it was, physical, mental, and emotional injuries, to use that word, or happenings that would have happened to us, eventually come to a stage where the nervous system is like, I'm at 9 out of 10, and the only way to handle this now is with severe anxiety. And people have coping mechanisms, and how a coping mechanism might be cigarettes, a coping mechanism might be alcohol, a coping mechanism might be marijuana, and etc. Workaholics, and yeah, probably less so coffee, but definitely food. Definitely food is a huge, and coffee is a different one because coffee is beneficial, but it's also, is it a crutch? And when you identify something in your life as a crutch, it's a management system for something that is problematic. So as the nervous system goes on, we explain that all that is all held in the body. It's not held in the mind. So people think of mental health, and I would err on the side of the conversation where it's not mental health, it's just health. We're trying to identify the difference between physical health being muscles in the gym or running, and mental health being what's happening in your head. And it's very, very wrong. So, and it's wrong because our mind is in our body. Our mind isn't just between our eyes. That's just where we perceive it to be, because that's where we're thinking from. So, but from the vagal nervous system, coming right down, called after the vagabond nerves, because it goes everywhere in the body, down into the organs, down into the tissues, down into all the components that keep us operating in this magnificent vehicle of a body, is our mind. So when you're stressed, what you think is in your head, it's the stress is in your body. And this is how we through years of ignoring or mismanaging or not identifying, a dis-ease comes into the body, and it represents in different areas or in a weak point or so on. Or it would switch on a propensity in the family, we'll say, to have like a gene, would switch on a gene that would be more inclined to cause cancer, for example. And that's how the nervous system becomes such a huge understanding of why breathwork is an important player, not the only one, but an important, very important player about how we regulate and treat and nourish that as a system. So Tai Chi, yoga, hill walking, all beneficial as well. But no matter what you're doing, you're always going to have to breathe in some sort of a rhythm. So let's make it productive, and let's make it conscious instead of just gasping. And when we can do that, we're really harnessing whatever toolkit we're having around managing ourselves and our system.
You mentioned, so during lockdown, the Wednesday nights started, and you're doing more breathwork related work now? Does that mean you're living more increasingly in alignment with the way you want to be living and your values, etc., etc.?
I was screaming all sorts of bloody murder. I had to close a gym. I got no notice. I was paying rent for another year. I was hit pretty badly financially, and I was like, Jesus, and I had been like, there might have been just small numbers on the breathwork as I started to come into it. I think it was May, June at the first lockdown, and and then I worked it up into being 30 on it, and I was like, oh, that's great. And I'm constantly trying to get it out there, grow it. I believe it's a delivery now which I have pretty well fine-tuned in terms of how the music, how the message, how the breathing rhythm and all that is connected into something that somebody can do at home. And yeah, as a result, I have messages every day asking me when is the next workshop on, because people are still craving for the workshops, or either retreats or in the day workshops, and they're craving it because they're craving. Some people don't like Zoom, some people get on okay with it, but there's just craving the connection of that space. People have lost a huge amount of the ability to connect and to be seen to be seen by a community that's ready to listen to each other. So for instance, if you're into breathwork, into meditation, or if you're into yoga, there's a lot of categories that are put together that are very similar for everybody else in the room. And so when you go on a retreat or when you go on a workshop, you're identifying and connecting with people that you've got a foothold or an understanding on some level with, that you both like to, for instance, learn more about yourselves, and how and how you're meeting people then that are on the same wavelength. When you're meeting people that are trying to do some work on themselves consciously, in the hope that if they do it well enough, it becomes a subconscious thing. It becomes a positive pattern within their nervous system, within their habit, within their routines, that they're developing, and they're constantly developing.
And as you lean into greater alignment, you seem to be pulling more people in to that orbit.
The more and more I trust it, the more and more people come. So the more I trust the work that I do, the more I am embodied, the greater I am aligned, and the less worried about where I am going. It's developing, and I'm confident about it. It's not at a place now where I can financially run my household on it. It's not. It really isn't. But it's also about creating an awareness for people that they've got somewhere to go and try it out. And you know what? It's not for everybody. Not everybody is ready to take some of the plasters off and have some of those realizations. And I try to do it in a way where it's very lightly done, and it's not a big ripping of a plaster, as some breathworks can be. And it's somewhere in that where I love what I do. It takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of preparation, it takes a lot of concentration, but it also in the same breath doesn't feel like I'm going to work.
Our strap line in Below the Line is this idea of live well, perform better, which, as I was explaining before we started recording, runs the risk of being frustratingly vague. And you've probably touched on some of this stuff already, but I'd just love to know what's your take on that strap line, and what does that mean to you?
So living well for me is that living well for you. What do you have? Is it a different standard? Or is it just holding ourselves to the standard of where we're currently at and living better? Living well, perform better. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I know the introduction you're trying to make on it, and you're right. It can be vague. So again, kind of just from my perspective, is living well is. Do you know what? There's a word that gets thrown around so much, and it's abundance. Living in abundance, and for me, it's a little bit of that West Coast America, where the sun is always shining and the Instagram filter is perfect. And it's like abundance. I'm sitting here and I'm manifesting, you know. And if you can do that and you're good at it, I'm really, really happy. I'm delighted. I'd love to learn more how to do that. But living, that practical side of me comes back into abundance, is realizing that you already have it and you're not looking for it. And abundance is a practice of gratitude for the frustrations, a practice of gratitude for the resistance that you're meeting in your life, because all of them have a message for you that are going to move you onto a next stage. So manifesting lotto numbers are manifesting, drops of money from the sky, or for instance, it's sometimes, we manifest and we align ourselves and we start meeting people that are more beneficial in our lives. Or we start meeting people that are really good at doing something that we're not, and through a communion and through a collaboration, and working with somebody and creating a goal that is prosperous is abundance.
Yeah. But if anyone has listened to this conversation so far, they'll know that, living well for you is not about accumulation or consumption. It's about a value alignment. It's about it's a deeper proposition for you, I think.
Thank you, and that's true. But it also is the same, because where I'm not chasing a financial gain, I do believe that by living in my alignment and living in from my heart and from my authenticity and from integrity and love what I'm doing, I might not be a billionaire, I might not have several hundred million, but I will do well. Yeah. On that, and doing well for me is not having to worry that money is tight, or not having to worry that food is quality food. Like, and I mean, we can go down to many different stores and pick up food for cheap, but what we put into our bodies is very important. And and again, driving a car that allows me to carry children safely, for instance, as well as, I am in that manifestation place where I am looking to attract and work abroad 3 or 4 months of the year in a different climate, the winter here, and like somewhere like Portugal or Hawaii, who knows? But it's that those things are on my radar, and I'm aligned to inviting those aspects in. And yeah, so again, somewhere in there. So living in that way for me is that manifestation, and it is happening. And people, and one of the frustrations I guess I would have is how people want to do breath work, or they want to do a retreat, and how they want to say, I'm going from here to this position, level 2 to level 9 now, because I've done that, because I've I know now, I've done it. And people don't have patience. People don't know that it's, again, to use those phrases, that it's not about the goal, it's not about the end journey. The end journey is the consistency of the journey that takes you to the place of where you are day to day, and how you are ready to engage, enjoy, or be frustrated with that. That's a decision.
You've spoken about breath work, but I'm interested in, as well as breath work, what other practices or habits or behaviors are you doing on a daily, weekly, whatever basis to just help you show up and do the live well, perform better piece?
Physical activity. Physical activity is important, and finding something that doesn't grate your soul by being in a gym or being on a bike or whatever it is, but finding that it could be a team game, it could be up the mountains, it could be walking the dog, but you stick to it. It's a physical. So we these bodies get older, these bodies get less resilient. Watch the food that we're putting into it. Like turn up and go, we're all going, I've heard it before. We're all going to die someday. We may as well have a couple extra points. So we may as well eat those chocolates. We're here for a short time, not a long time. You've heard those kind of comments. It's an absolute cop out. It's an absolute cheat and disservice to yourself and to what you are by just letting yourself have that standard. So food, water is very important. I'm a stickler on water because, and I'm a stickler for not allowing plastic as much as possible into my nutrition. Bottled water for me is a no-no. I have water on the tap that I would use and fill up and go from there, but it's filtered water. But so food, water is huge, and as you have a practice of nervous system awareness, and that again, I'm not telling people it has to be breath work. I'm telling you that breath work is used in all the modalities that help do it. So Tai Chi, yoga, etc. And how you create more space within your system, or how the word I would often use would be bandwidth. And when you create a bandwidth in your system, you just have a better resilience. You have a better catching moments where you just go, that's my trigger. I'm not adhering to my trigger. And, getting angry at somebody really only hurts the person that's angry. As the quote goes, it's like anger is holding a hot coal, wanting to throw it at someone else, but it's always too hot that it never reaches that person and just burns your hand. You can use that in different kind of, like anger would be the big one, yeah.
Based on your perspective and what you're seeing, particularly over the last 2 years, you mentioned anxiety as well, but what are the main health or well-being or performance challenges that you see being faced by people that you come across, or the things that you observe in people right now?
Guilt is a big one, and the guilt that they should be doing better, or the guilt that they're not there for their kids enough, is a big one. And how guilt is happening is because, again, social media would be a big trigger point, and how you feel that you're not enough, and you feel like you're doing so much and you're trying so hard, and you're not that body type, or you're not that bank account, and there's like, oh, what's wrong with me? What am I doing? I should be doing better. That self-loathe, that's again a version of frustration. But people need to get off. I mean, social media is a big culprit for it, in fairness. And I am on social media through Instagram as something that I do check in because it's one of my platforms. But people are guilty because they feel they should be something else. Now, if you feel you should be something else, it means that you're not content or you're not happy with who you are. And somewhere in there is your journey, or somewhere in there, it's no point me telling someone you are enough, and trust me that you are. You're more magnificent than you can understand. And they go, oh, you're very nice, thank you, that's lovely. But until they realize it, and to realize it, you need a practice. And it's not that, sometimes it's an aha moment, But often it's just that layer, step, layer, step. And after a couple of months, or maybe a year or whatever, it's like, I'm in a different place. I have better values for myself. I have better boundaries for myself. I have better aspirations for myself. And, I've dealt with part of the frustrations which are usually parental and family based on how they are kind of stigmatizing my own self-respect.
Just from your own perspective and your own experience, what's the one piece of advice you would give to anyone who's looking to live well and perform better?
Surround yourself with people who are doing it. If you want to live well and perform better, but you're going to the same entertainment system or the same group of guys or girls that aren't looking to do that, then you probably won't do it. So it's like change in yourself often means losing friends or losing what you thought the idea was of friends were. But then you got to look at it kind of going, are they friends? Are they just people that don't challenge me and tell me that I'm right and make me feel good about reinforcing the narrative that I have about myself, which is really not so beneficial. I'm a great guy. That would be one, who you're hanging around with. Number two is, what practice for self-development are you doing? And I don't always mean in an educational way. I don't always mean in a, kind of a sort of performance way. It can be gardening. It can be, spending a couple of hours helping the dogs down the shelter, whatever it is. And it's just creating and supporting that empathy and supporting that evolution of compassion and love within yourself. And it's different for different people, but find the one. And traditionally, when you ask someone, they'll be able to tell you because they knew it when they were younger and they've been coached out of recognizing it.
My last question, just in terms of Breathwave Ireland, it's breathwaveireland.com. There's the Wednesday nights, but maybe just tell us a little bit more about that and anything else that's gonna people might be interested or curious to know about you or that you've got going on.
Thank you. It's so I do workshops. People invite me up to either their yoga studios, and there's a split in how we manage that, or I would run my own retreats. Anybody out there who's got venues for retreats with kind of the numbers of 15, 20 upwards, I'd love to hear from them. I'm always looking for those bigger places, bigger retreats. I work with cacao, which is kind of a bit of a buzz in this community as well. And so I am been lucky enough to source some really, really lovely soft cacao from Bali. So I'm starting to create a brand around that as a product as well. Again, that's probably part of the manifestation, creating a brand around cacao and maybe a few other things, and being able to manage my life online. So I still thoroughly believe that even from building a successful business that I'm passionate about, I can still do it in 2 weeks every month, and that I'm not flogging the horse or flogging myself. That's not saying that there's a lot of work to put in, but there's that balance. And I know that balance is there for me because ultimately, when so many people are on that palliative care bed, what they say is they wish they spent more time with their kids. So I don't want to be one of them.
Well, it sounds to me like you won't, that you're well on the way to manifesting, as you say, that type of life. And look, we'll draw to a close there. But Ronan, thanks very much for being so generous with your time. As we said already, breathwaveireland.com is where people can find out more about you. But that was a fascinating excursion into the deepest reaches of, you know, the human experience, all the way up to all sorts of things, consumerism to philosophy, it ran the gamut. So thanks a million.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Thank you.